You're listening to the 15 Minutes with Frank podcast.
Welcome back to 15 Minutes with Frank. My name is Frank, and I am glad that you are here. Hey, wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this or watching this, I'm thankful that you're here. If you haven't done so, please subscribe, whether it's on iTunes, whether it's on YouTube, or both. And check out the 15 Minutes with Frank Facebook group, as well as the 15 Minutes with Frank Instagram account to stay updated. Hey, I am so stoked to talk about this because every now and then I get asked this question. So how did you make the jump from youth ministry to campus pastor? What's the story behind it? And, some people have these ambitions and these desires to be a senior pastor or campus pastor. And I've only done this for almost a year now. I don't have all the answers, but I have some practical experience stuff that I want to share, and I would love to tell it to you. But before we do that, if you're a youth pastor, and there's a conference I want you to be at. All right, it's in October. It's in a few weeks, and I want you to check it out. So here's the information for that event. Check it out. Usually every year we talk about NYWC, National Youth Workers Convention, and for the past few years I've been able to go. I've been able to do a little breakout. I've been able to do my live podcast, and it was dope. It was awesome. But obviously it's not happening this year. Like, Ohio won't let us do anything, right? So with that being said, the great folks at Orange, DYM, the Fuller Youth Institute, I think a few other people, they're doing some amazing things this year by doing the Youth Ministry Exchange, all right? It's going to be like a roundtable discussion, some great voices in youth ministry. I'm going to be a part of it. I get to moderate and host some stuff. So if you are looking for that big youth ministry conference experience, and you obviously we can't go to a conference, I want you to go to check out Youth Ministry Exchange. It's in October. It's going to be super awesome. It's going to be online. It's going to be accessible. And I want you to use the link that you can see in this video. But if you're listening to this, I want you to go to the link in the show notes. All that's going to be there. I want you to at least give me the opportunity for you to look and see what's available, because it is going to be an awesome conference. All right, please use my link. It does help the show, but you should be a part of it because I'm going to be a part of it. I think you should be a part of it. Youth Ministry Exchange is going to be super dope. A lot of great friends are going to be there. You're going to want to be there. All right, see ya. So I think that when I got into student ministry, like right after I graduated Bible college and I started, full-time vocational student ministry, I read all the books that you've probably read. I've done all the things, and I said, I'm going to do student ministry to the day I die. Like, this is my dream work, right, is to do student ministry. And when I get to an age where I feel like I can't relate to students or something, I will then just write books about it or something, right? Like, I think a lot of youth workers say, like, I'm not going to use this as a stepping stone. I'm going to be for real about this and do this as long as I can for the greater good of student ministry. And I believe that, and I did that. And I think for like a lot of people, that was my only desires to ever to do student ministry. When I got to Milwaukee, it was a dream youth ministry job. Like, I got to build something from the ground up. There were no golden calves. There's no like weird events or ministries within the student ministry that I had a problem with that weren't easily able to change. It was a dream gig, and I absolutely adored it. And I thought I could see myself here for a long time and all that kind of stuff. With that being said, there were seasons of being here at Epicos where I thought, like, maybe I don't want to be here. Maybe I should look at some other places. And inevitably, if you do youth ministry long enough, you're going to get people emailing you, calling you, reaching out to you, asking you about other youth ministry opportunities because they see what you're doing and they want you somewhere else at their church or whatever. And there were some tempting offers along the way. And I think that's natural. I think it's normal. So maybe it might be a temptation from the devil. It may be it just like our natural ebbs and flows of seasons where you're like, is this where I really want to be right now? And also, if you live in Milwaukee or you live in the Midwest, winter is hard, And so when you get a tempting offer from somewhere in Southern California, you kind of listen to it, right? Because it's like, I can get away from the winter or whatever. But long story short, there came a moment in September where I was like, September of 2019, it was last year, 2019, where my senior pastor said, I want to take you on a walk. Can we go for a walk around where our campus was? The East Side campus, one of our campuses. And I thought, well, this has never happened before. My senior pastor has never once ever asked me to go on a walk with him. And this is also probably like, yeah, one of the most intimidating moments ever. Like I thought for sure, like, oh, this is how I'm gonna get fired. Like he's gonna take me on a walk, and I'm gonna get fired right now. And so immediately when he said that, I thought to myself, well, maybe there's a church somewhere that will hire me after this, because I was like, and I started thinking about like, did I do something wrong? Did I fail to do something? I started thinking all those thoughts. As we went on the walk, he said, do you know what I'm here to ask you about? And I wanted to say, you're going to fire me. But I didn't say that. I said, no. And he said, well, I want to offer you the position to be the campus pastor of the next campus. And I was like, whoa, that's not at all what I was expecting. And so I asked him some questions about like the campus and why he felt, this is important, why he felt I should be the campus pastor. Like, what was it about me? What have you seen in me that felt like this would be a good role for me? Because that's the thing is, it's like a lot of people might offer you opportunities to do whatever, but I want to know why you think I would be fit for that, because maybe what you think is not what's reality. And so maybe I want to be clear on what the expectations are, or what you see in me that thinks I'm a good role for this. And so he told me a bunch of stuff that ultimately was like, all right, yeah, that all makes sense. And then I said, let me pray about it. Let me talk to some people about it, but I'm interested. And I asked him, when do you need to know by? He gave me a certain date. I prayed about it, talked to some people, came back. I accepted the offer. And sure enough, there was a somewhat of a formal process. I had to be interviewed by a couple people on staff, but like I wasn't competing with anybody else. And within like 2 weeks, I got offered the position, and it was great. It all ended at a restaurant where I got to eat steak and with some other staff members, and I accepted the position to be the campus pastor of the Mayfair Road campus at Epicos. With that being said, there were some things along the way that he shared with me that I think prepared me to become a campus pastor. And I want to share this with you, because if you have any of these desires, any of those desires to be a campus pastor or a senior pastor, I think these are good. Even if you don't have those desires, you don't want to leave student ministry, these are still important for you to hear, because more than anything, I love student ministry, and I want super healthy youth leaders that can dominate in student ministry. And what I mean by dominate is for the glory of God, leading students to Jesus. All right, that's what I mean by dominate. And so here's like a couple things I wrote down as things that I think prepared me for this role. And in the year that I've been in this role, even in the midst of COVID, I think it helped me kind of understand why I'm here and why I'm in the place that I am. Okay, the first thing is this: is you got to work hard. All right. We need to be above the stereotype that's common about youth ministry, that these are overgrown adolescents, that they just want to have no responsibility, that they're known for overspending on the budget, they're known for not turning in the receipts, they're known for kind of lazy habits. They are inept at really true public speaking, except for speaking to teenagers. They can talk to kids, but not adults. Like a lot of those stereotypes, if you're in youth ministry, you know are untrue stereotypes, but they're stereotypes for a reason. Someone has done them, and those stereotypes has ingrained in other levels of the church ministry. And so you need to work hard, and you need to be able to do everything you can to make your youth ministry as great as it possibly can. So that means, like, when you do an event, do it to excellence. Think through all those different things. You need to be able to have, like, kind of like, the pastor says, like, let no one assume anything. What's the verse? Oh my goodness. Be above reproach. Like there shouldn't even be the sense of sin on you. Like you should be so working hard in your student ministry. When people see you and they think of you, they think of someone who works hard, because the evidence of that is such a good student ministry, right? That's my first thing, is like, work hard. I'm not saying like I'm the hardest work. I'm not like the Gary V. I wasn't the Gary V of youth ministry, right? But like when I had a camp, I put in the work, and I wanted things to be excellent. And so when I made a small group guide, I didn't make a small group guide. I made a magazine, because I wanted to be the dopest thing kids ever got that year. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to when I got to send emails to my leaders, I wanted it to be beneficial and meaningful, not just a bunch of announcements, right? So work hard so that your reputation can exceed you, and so people can say, hey, when I think of you, when I think of the person that's in leadership right now, I think really, really great thoughts of a person that works really, really hard. Now, something similar, the second thing I want to tell you to do is similar but slightly different. I'll explain how, is to have a work ethic that prepares you for the next level. when I was in student ministry, I had, a limited number of students and a limited number of leaders and a limited number of parents that I spoke to. But when I came into this campus pastor position, that grew exponentially, right? I have way more leaders, way more congregants, way more people I have to come in contact with. But just because I had less people in student ministry, I wanted to make sure that I was always doing stuff with an ethic that if it was multiplied, if it grew, I was ready. And so even with my dream of becoming a multi-site campus pastor, I tried to run my single site of youth ministry in a way that if it were to launch a new student ministry tomorrow, I had the infrastructure to grow that, and I had the work ethic to be able to handle that. When you have the work ethic that's preparing you for the next level, if you want to say next level, that's kind of like a gross word to say, especially because that implies that youth ministry is a lower level. I'm saying whatever next role you want to be in, make sure you have the work ethic that can follow you there, right? So that means answering your emails promptly. That means following whatever infrastructures your church has to do things. So if your church has a certain system to turn in receipts, make sure you are following that. Whenever your church pivots to a new system, be the first person that becomes the expert of that system. So that way when people say I know we just turned to this new way of getting communications out to our church, the only person that's doing it correctly is the youth ministry right now. That be of you, so that way when you get to a campus pastor position where there will be more work for you to do, you already have the work ethic built in. You already have a system that on Mondays, I'm going to pound out a bunch of emails. I block out Tuesdays for my sermon writing. I block, Wednesdays, I have a lot of time to meet with people. And I have an efficient means to have conversations with people. And you have a system in your mind. Like when I'm meeting with someone, I have no idea what it's about. I don't know the person. I have a way to communicate with that person and have leading questions to pull those answers out. Start practicing this now with the parents that you don't know very well, with the emails that you have to respond to or create every single week. Do that now. Have the work ethic that prepares you for the next position you want to be in. So you have working hard and a good work ethic, right? Those are the two things. The last thing I want to say is this, and this has less to do with a practical thing, but more of an encouragement to you. When I was considering leaving student ministry, I was scared. And the reason why I was scared was this, is I thought my identity was so rolled up into me as a youth worker, as a youth pastor, and I was so comfortable in youth ministry that the idea of leaving youth ministry to become a campus pastor felt very intimidating and scary to me, because I had insecurities and doubts in my own life of whether or not I could actually do that. And so a common phrase I would say is, my biggest fear would be if a woman came into my office and her baby she just miscarried a baby, and she looked at me in the eyes with tears in her eyes and said, "Where is my baby?" And I have a theological answer for that, and I feel like I have a pastoral answer for that, but the emotional weight of that moment felt very, very intimidating to me. And I realized that was probably just kind of insecurities fed to me from my own flesh or from Satan, because if anything, and I say this not as a fanboy of youth ministry, but the God's honest truth is that youth ministry has prepared me more for what I'm doing now as a campus pastor than anything else I could do. Now, there's no diss to people who go straight from seminary to an associate pastor role or even a senior pastor role, but I think everyone should do student ministry in the same way how people say everyone should work in the service industry as a waiter or a waitress to be more respectful to people. I think if you spend any significant time in student ministry, don't let any insecurities roll up in you about fear of taking on a new role, because student ministry has prepared you for everything. It's kind of like algebra, right? When in high school, I was terrible at math. I wasn't good at it. I was a C student, especially when it came to stuff like math. But I remember not yelling, but I was upset at my teacher because I was I got a failing test. And I looked at my teacher and I said, "Algebra is stupid. Why are we doing this? This is not going to help me for the real world. I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm not going to be someone that needs a lot of math." At that time, I thought I was going to be a football player. So I didn't understand it. And my teacher said something to me that I've never forgot. He said, "Yeah, you're not going to use some of this stuff in the real world. But that's not the point. You learn complex equations, not because you're going to use it practically in the real world, but because it's forming in you your brain to prepare for complex situations." And when he said that, I probably like scoffed and just mocked him, like whatever, right? But I've never forgotten that now when I'm dealing with complex situations that need some intense problem solving, for whatever, when I learned those complicated math equations in high school, it's prepared me for that moment. Youth ministry has prepared me for those difficult times where I often say now, in high school, I was encouraging kids not to cheat on their tests. Now I'm encouraging family, like husbands, not to cheat on their spouses, right? Like a lot of the things that we did in youth ministry translates perfectly for you when you become a senior pastor or a campus pastor or whatever role you want to be in, because you have garnered those tools and you have like a tool bag of random skills. Whether it's like how much pizza to buy for an event, how to write small group questions for your students, how to preach to students, all these different things, maybe even design skills because you had to make flyers and stuff that you think this is specifically for youth ministry is going to prepare you to not just be a great associate pastor, campus pastor, senior pastor, whatever, but like an excellent one. Because now you have skills that are outside the roles of common senior pastors and the campus pastors and associate pastors that you can harness from to be able to use in your ministry. So let me give you one example. I think one reason I used to believe that the church loved when the youth pastors preach is because they were tired of hearing their senior pastor. And for sure, that's probably true. And I always say this, don't pat yourself on the back too much when you preach and everyone's like, oh my goodness, what a great sermon. You're so much better than the senior pastor. Hopefully your church is not that toxic that they're saying that, right? But don't get to your head, because sometimes it's simply because when you hear the same person over and over again, you get tired of them. It kind of becomes just loud noise. I think there's also something else where in youth ministry, we have done the hard work of learning how to contextualize a message to students that we now know how to take these big, sometimes abstract truths of Scripture and boil them down to handholds and manageable, biteable pieces that the average person can take. I have a friend who I just talked to a couple days ago. His name is Tim Ashley, and he said you should put the cookies on the bottom shelf, right? Let this stuff be accessible so that people can ingest it and take it. And I think youth ministry has given us the skills to be able to take Scripture and in our mind, we have done the hard work of being able to process these things to make it much more accessible to people. So let me encourage you, youth workers, children leaders, whatever, if you're given the opportunity to preach or teach to adults, don't start pulling out your John Piper and speaking poetic, lofty terms, right? That's not what you need to do. I mean, maybe you're in a culture where you have to do that, but that's not what we need to be doing. Go in there and with the same kind of enthusiasm as you speak to students, not necessarily the same slang, you have a bigger vocabulary, but in the same way how you contextualize to students to take these big abstract theological points into a way that is practical for the life of a teenager. Take these big abstract theological points and make it so practical for the adult in your church that when they walk away, that those words are just jumping around in their head all day because you've made it so practical, because you know how to make things contextual. Now, all pastors know how to do that to some degree, but I think youth ministry has uniquely created you to do this very, very well. Does that make sense? I think everyone, if they want to aspire to be a senior pastor or a campus pastor or whatever one day, they should do youth ministry first, because it has truly prepared me for what I'm doing now, and I think it's truly preparing others for the same role. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Let me just say one more thing. This is not, I don't think, if you are called to youth ministry, stay in youth ministry. Don't dip out, don't run away. We need people to stick around. But if you feel like God has brought you into a place in your life where like he's turning my desires to something else, whether it's a campus pastor ministry, associate pastor, or a senior pastor, then be faithful to what God has called you to do. Don't be like a Jonah and run away from what God is calling you to do, because as you can see in Jonah, bad things happen when you do that, right? But be faithful, but be patient. Trust in God. Don't force anything, because youth ministry is important and it's a valuable ministry. But so is the ministry to care for their parents, right? And so even as a campus pastor, I find myself the best way I can care for my students that I love is by caring for their family as their campus pastor now. That's where I'm at. With that being said, thank you so much for listening and watching wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Yes, please share this with someone. Maybe there's someone you know that's maybe wrestling with this decision. Share this with them. Maybe this can be helpful. But until next time, bye, buddies.